Welcome, everybody, to Generation Dan, the show, like Tony Hawk in 1999 or that one Rocket Power episode, is now vertical. I'm Atlas Novak. I'm your millennial. Who else is here with me?
The most obscure reference known to mankind. I'm Dino, the
It's
genetic
for the
marvel.
millennials, yeah.
Traditionally, I am the senior citizen here. However, today, as has been every time with Jim, I am once again humbled and allow someone who has experienced more be our guest. And that is Jim Eaton. How are you, Jim?
Oh, I'm doing fine, thank you. I am an actual senior citizen, so
listen,
yeah,
Atlas is the same way.
I know the way it works.
Yeah, Atlas is just waiting to qualify. Like he's banking, like he's noting where has senior discounts. He's like, okay, I'll be back. I'll be back when the time comes. And he's just,
I'll be doing that, and at the same time, I'll have like 7 retirement account by the time I become a senior citizen. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Well, you know what you need to do is get some of that white spray stuff and spray your beard and your hat, and then get a phony ID.
There you go.
I had my first gray hair this year because I teach high school children, and my wife was like, "Yes, give me more." Now, for people who have watched the show for a long time and you've seen the Aspen Chronicles episodes, you've seen my dad's white hair. That white hair has been around since he was 40. So, like, the train is coming, I bet.
So my mom went completely white when she had me, and she was 32. So it's always been like, this is just a battle of my father's genes versus my mom's genes, and my mom is winning. My oldest brother is completely white, and I was like, he's 12 years older than me, though, so like he's 56, and I'm like, you're so old. He's like, yeah, I'm old, fuck off. And I'm just like, yeah. But I don't know.
Yeah, my mom was actually 39 my entire life, so I don't know.
Perfect.
So the topic that we're talking about today, and the reason that we brought back the bus driver extraordinaire Jim Eaton, is we want to talk about whether longer life expectancy is causing people to grow up at a slower rate.
Right. Like, well, let's be honest, is the whole idea is that we've heard the saying is hard men create soft times create soft men create hard times create hard men, and the circle continues and continues and continues, right?
Yeah.
And now we're seeing, let's be honest, a lot of youthful expression from all sorts of aged people. And that's peculiar because, like, listen, how is it that everyone is become so willing to discuss, I guess, instead of like, listen, if somebody's like, oh, you want to go? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, fuck no, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, oh, darn it. Right. Because, Jim, I'm still at an age where now I've lost weight, and I'm like, I kind of want to see if I still got it, but at the same time, I don't want to get my ass kicked, which is, I think, reasonable. But
I don't know. I'm still waiting for the day that a student either throws something at me or takes a swing at me. Like, I'm 6 foot, but there are a couple of kids who are like 6'2", 6'4", Dino sized.
Yeah, and and teenagers are like, they're a lot tougher, and their bones are still bendy. As you get older, those bones start getting brittle, man. It's dangerous.
All right, let's start somewhere simple.
Yeah.
For example, when 30, 40 years ago, people who were in their 20s and early 30s usually had a full family, had bought a house, and nowadays people of my age are maybe married. Not a lot of people are having as many kids. We're probably not buying a house at great of a capacity. By the same token, however, you have just people in their 30s look younger than they did.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So why do we think that is? Let's start with that. Fuck it.
People are living to be older. That kind of makes sense, though. People are living to be older. So it's like how also when you get older, you perceive time as taking less. Like, time seems to travel faster when you get older.
True.
So I'm not sure if it's your perspective of time. It's just you've had so much perspective that or if it's physically moving faster.
Well, no, like Jim, when you were my age, and you were like saw other 30-year-olds, did they look?
Listen,
younger, older, what?
Well, when I was your age, we had like there was issues with like reptiles flying around and stuff. People seemed different back then too. Like people seem to be society seems to be politer now. Although you want to know that by like people arguing about stupid politics and stuff, but like just generally people seem to be more selfish, self-centered back 30 years ago, in my opinion.
No, that's fair. And listen, Jim, like in all honesty, you kind of pointed out something that I think that we should touch on too, was that like as you get older, your perspective changes.
Oh yeah.
Like and like the fact that you just said you're like time travels really fast as you get older. And I'm starting to feel that too, where I'm like, man, it's September. I'm like, my birthday was like yesterday. I don't like it's everything is happening too fast. But it's a little bit one of those things where it's like perception with time will always change. So it's like, is it possible, like you said, is like people have gotten nicer, but is it more so that you're now an adult, an older gentleman, so people are going to be kinder to you?
Yeah, probably that could be the case too. Yeah.
Like it really is a chicken or the egg situation that like I'm because okay, I don't know, Jim, if you've seen this, but there are a bunch of pictures of like basketball players from like the 70s, okay? And they're like, I'm 26, and you're like, bro, you look like you're 47 and on your third marriage.
Yeah, that's true.
Alarming, right?
My theory for that, and I've said it before on this show, is that the reason that people just looked older back then, aside from the camera equipment, aside from all that, is that everybody smoked.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
there was just cigarette smoke. Like even if you didn't yourself smoke, smoking sections in restaurants, ashtrays, and like just smoke was everywhere, and nicotine smoke like ages you a lot. That's my theory, at least. I also think
because people used to smoke everywhere. Like I can remember going to like events at the Moose Lodge and with my parents and stuff, and everybody smoked.
Yeah. I got on an old streetcar and it had an ashtray in the seat, and I was like, that's fucking cool. And then they're like, yeah, this thing's getting demolished. I'm like, oh.
There's that, and then like less of an understanding of mental health. So I think just people angrier, like it's harder to process your emotions.
And I've noticed that too. Like actually yesterday, because I'm in an assisted living facility now, and there's a lot of older people here. And there's one older gentleman, and he's a retired professor. This is on the University of California, Santa Barbara. It's right next door to it. Okay. And we have a couple of retired professors and stuff that live here.
Yeah.
And they're interesting people talking. In fact, we were talking, and then this one guy, he's always talking about death all the time. And it's like, but the thing is, it's like, he's 90 years old, and then that's what he wants. And I mean, it's something that. It's something that's a topic now here, and he tries to get people to talk to him, but other people don't want to talk to him about it. Yeah. But it is part of life, and it's kind of interesting. But I noticed, and then these other people came, and we're sitting in this one guy. He's in his 70s. Yeah. His grandson was going to take him to a USC game, and this other older gentleman was convinced that this was just a complete waste of time, and he shouldn't do it. And he's telling him how stupid he is. I go, hey, you're going to spend all this money and stuff like that. I go, hey, he's never been to it. You've never been to it. You want to at least go to one, And then, but this guy, he was just so adamant on like, oh, you're going to have a hard time parking. Could only find negative things. And not a lot of positive things. And I think that has a lot to do with people
huge
too.
That's okay. So. This is okay, Jim. I want your opinion on this. Was the other day we were in a mall. There were lineups. It was a whole big thing. It was a very busy day, oddly, and I was with my wife and an older couple who were probably, they looked like they were just starting retirement, so like mid to late 60s, around there. Okay, and they butt through like 3 lines and like kind of they were being very weird and like pushy. And I said loudly to my wife, because me being, gigantic, I have no fear in talking shit to anyone. I'm like, can you imagine being that old and still haven't learned patience to line up with everybody else? And both of them went just completely white, and they were like, oh yeah, I guess so. I'm like, what a disappointment to all the people that so long, and you still no patience, nothing. You got no ability to deal with other people. And they just kind of looked down and went to the back of the line. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong? And like, but the thing is, like, people who are negative and rude in their youth, if they never learn, they will continue to be like just shitty people as they're older. And like a guy who wants to talk about death, like, that's weird, but also you're gonna learn some cool shit from him, right?
That guy, that's very Gen Z of him, for him to be like, yes, death. I just imagine, like, you've ever seen the movie The Seventh Seal? Either of you?
Yeah, I think I have.
It's the one where the guy has to play chess against death, otherwise he dies.
Yeah.
Right? So I just imagine that professor, death comes with the chessboard. You must win a game of chess against it. Not even necessary. I'll go with you.
Yeah, I'm good. No, I'm ready. I've wrapped it up. Let's get out of here. Like, but like you said, Jim, like that is another stage of life. Like, it is inevitable. No one's getting out of this alive, right? Oh, yeah. We're all gonna go through it. But it's like, if you haven't enjoyed yourself, that's kind of on you, right? Like, you're in charge. As much as we like to think that it's like, well, there's fate and I was born this way or whatever, that's fine. But like, being happy, enjoying yourself and stuff, like, that's something I'm trying to work on, because I am have a shit attitude a lot of times. And I'm like, I can be happier. And sometimes I just lie and I'm like, no, I'm happy. And then I get home and my wife is like, why are you so sad? I'm like, God, it's just my face is tired. I'm just tired of fake smiling all fucking day.
Yeah. Or like my sister and I had a bit of a, I was pissed off at her, but
yeah,
that's like behind the scenes stuff. So she and I went to therapy together a couple weeks ago, and it's the first time in my life I've been in a therapy session with someone else.
Ooh.
And in my head, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be like, months and months of us talking it out, and we'll only get to do this one time. And for the most part, we sort of like got all the cards on the table, and like,
I don't know,
out for the most part. Like, the fact that we were both willing to do this, B, therapy is destigmatized for my generation, at least, enough where none of our friends or family are like, hell yeah, therapy. Like, everyone's just like, good for you. And then we go there, and we were able to go through the proper steps to do that, and hopefully take the lessons we learned from that into our everyday lives.
Right.
When I went to Oregon this summer, that was another big part of it, was to be able to process those emotions better than in the 70s, where it's just like, I'm going to drink and I'm not going to tell anybody and then I'm going to die.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, but like, Jim, here's the question for you. So Jim, like, I have a theory that I'm like, if I go the distance and I get to like officially be a retired person per se, I feel like I already am, but let's just put the pin in that. But I'm like, I kind of want to just be having crazy fun at that point, where I'm like, I'll do all the drugs. I'll just have fun. Like, I don't know. Do you have anyone like that in your, are you that guy, Jim? That's a real
I'm that guy. Well, I try to have fun. I personally think drugs, I don't like drugs because I like to be self-aware.
Fair enough.
And I find it, because I like to try to make people laugh, and I can't do that if I'm, if I'm using something or intoxicated or something. And also with being a bouncer for years, I was a bouncer for a long time, like it's a separate job. So I got to the point where I didn't really like being around, people. I didn't want to be that person.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, no, that's reasonable. No.
And but there are people like that, and then I look at it like, and there's a few people that just, and I enjoy life, and I just look at it like, I've had a couple of situations where I thought I was going to die in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And I was in the hospital during the height of COVID, and there was people dying around me. And I basically got out and I was in this acting class online with Atlas, actually. It was a writing class or the acting class. And I just want to get out of here so I can go to my little writer's workshop. And but it's weird, you don't really think about this kind of stuff, and then being around all these people too and talking to them about that seems to be a topic around here that a lot of people talk about. It's just, we're in the end stage of our lives and stuff, and it's trying to make yourself happy because it's nothing you can stop from happening. And then kind of another metaphor that I just got thinking about, right across the street from us, there's this giant building. Yeah. And it was actually built to be a retirement home for Stephen Hawking. And they were going to build a physics, like a place where people in physics could come and spend time with Stephen Hawking. And then he went and died on him.
What a prick!
They had already spent like $100 million on this.
Jeez, selfish bastard to the end. No, I don't want to share my knowledge with that. Kyle,
you talk as if drinking through crappy situation hasn't gotten us for the last 2,000 years. It has, but also has left liver cirrhosis and beaten children in its wake.
So I have let's expand on that. It's like the idea is like, if you don't have the time, because let's be honest, to talk through and like learn all the things to be a well-adjusted adult or person takes time. So it's like, listen, if you're going to be in and out in like 25, 30 years, you're kind of going, listen, I'll just drink it away and pass it on to the next guy. The hell with it, right? So it's like, to that degree, I get it, because I was reading today, 3 things every society that's ever existed has had is bread, or they've created dough, a sword of some sort, and fermentation. You're going, so it's not a new thing that we've used alcohol for reasons, but
check out Last Minute History for more.
But like more of that. But realistically, now we have more time, and like you said, Atlas was like the idea of having a bigger focus on mental health and its importance, right? Like being positive is a huge has a huge effect in your day-to-day life. So even if you're not feeling good, but you put on a smile and you fake it, it can work wonders in the long run, right? Like whether that's a placebo or not, or whatever it is, that is, scientifically proven. That it's like, listen, sometimes you just have to lie to yourself and say, yeah, no, I'm happy. I'm okay. And I'm just going to keep on pushing through. Right.
Yeah. That's how I kept myself sane as a bus driver, actually, is because I would just look at myself. Like you get like some like weird, crazy stuff going on. And then you could like, especially with people that are intoxicated or something. And the same thing with the bouncers. It doesn't do any good to fight with them. Because if you do get into a fight with somebody and you're a bouncer, the police are going to show up, and then you both get a chance to put each other under citizen's arrest. So there's a good chance you're going to end up in jail too. So it's best just not to try to fight. But I would just convince myself that I was just observing this on television and not an actual participant. And that seemed to help me a lot, especially with the bus driving. But my favorite thing was, because with being a bouncer, is I would try to tell the people I wanted to go outside and have a smoke with them. Let's go out and have a smoke and talk about this. And what amazed me is how many people would walk with me to the door.
Yep.
And let me open the door for them, and then just shut the door.
Yeah. But that's, and you know what?
Say a word.
That's a top tier move. Be like, hey man, why don't we just go have a smoke and we'll talk about it? It's like, all right, fine. And you're like, it's that weirdly, especially when people are drunk people love smoking. If you do smoke, they love smoking. If you don't smoke, they love smoking. It doesn't make a difference. As soon as you have a little bit too much booze, you're like, I need a cigarette. And that's like, I have actively quit like multiple times in like the last few weeks, where I'm just like, no cigarettes, please. If people was like, hey, I'm going for a smoke. Yeah.
I just hate how cool smoking looks. Like I've never smoked a cigarette before, but like from pop culture, from over 100 years ago now, something about just the
Listen, it's one of those things that you're like, it makes you feel like a dragon. You're like, I'm just breathing smoke. Yeah, I'm basically a dragon. Just that's fine, no problem. It's one of those things.
So we know that like as a society, as people, we're getting better at being able to handle ourselves intrinsically and how to deal with our personal problems. Yeah. What I also wanted to talk about was because our parents are living longer, are they preventing us from truly becoming adults? Because around the time of like your 30s to 40s, when you're in the time where you should be like raising your kids, your parents start to get to the age where you're like taking care of two sets of children at the same time.
Yes.
Some equivalent or another.
My phone rang and I'm being a baby boomer. I can't figure out how to use, freak out when something like this happens.
That's okay.
Totally reasonable.
Okay.
Listen, could you hear us while we were talking, or though? Could you hear us though, Jim? Or
no, I couldn't hear a thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you were talking about what a fine individual I am and stuff.
Oh yeah, he's the best. He's got friends. People are calling him during the show. It's awesome. But
that's how you know. Yeah.
The question is, because our parents are living to their 80s, their 90s, talking about death, and people who are trying to, as they're either having kids or raising their kids, their parents are also getting to a point where they're taking care of two sets of children at the same time. Is that preventing us from becoming full-fledged adults? Because it seems like 2 to 3 generations ago, your parents would be dead by like 60 or 70.
Oh yeah.
And so you're like, cool, they're dead. Take a shot, shed a single tear, and never say anything again, and then I can raise my children. Or what?
Well, I think I like the idea of like the older cultures, like Mexican culture and the Italian culture, and where the grandparents become active in their retirement. Yep. They take care of the grandkids. But the problem is our society has just become so focused on making a living, and everybody has to work, and then people get spread out all over the country. So it's not feasible for our generations. That's going on now. It's not feasible.
Well, and so Greek culture is the same way, Jim. And it's like the idea that you would go and live somewhere else. You're like, no, it's the family home. You support the family. As everyone it's like, oh, I'm getting a job and I'm moving away, and people are like, why would you do? But you're not supporting your family. Like your family is important, right? So it's like it's everyone has more time to hang out because we're living longer. So if you have more time to hang out, you have more time to hate each other as family members, and also get on each other's nerves, right? So because
the concept of moving out, like when you turn 18 or whatever, or after you finish college, didn't really start to be a thing until after World War II. Before that, it was your single family home was like you would take care of your parents would help take care of your kids, and the only person who'd be moving out was the daughter to move in with the husband.
Correct.
That's usually how that worked for a long time.
But then also people didn't stick around for like 90 years. They were like 60, and I'm like, I'm out making room for other kids. Have a great one, and you're like, because listen, I'll be honest with you. When I went to my father's childhood home, and it was like, oh, you can stay in this room. I'm like, isn't this where grandma used to sleep? And they're like, yep, that's her bed, and that's yours now. And it's like, oh God, can I not sleep in the dead person's bed? And they're like, that's all the bed you get. And I'm like, cool. That's going to be terrifying. And
Death comes in with the chessboard and is just like, oh, I thought you were someone else. Sorry about that. Wrong.
Sorry. Basically, yeah. But that's the thing is the idea. I love this saying where it's like, oh, if you don't raise your kids, you'll definitely raise your grandkids, right? Like, but I'm like, wait, your grandparents, that's your job is to help me with the kids, because I'm gonna go do what you used to do and go make money, and you keep the fucking fort locked down. I'm gonna go get shit done, right? Like,
yeah,
makes sense.
I'm in a situation where all of my family members, like immediate family members, live in LA. My wife's included, right? The only exception is one of my brothers-in-law who lives in Indiana. That doesn't matter. The point is that both my parents, both of Katie's parents, both live in LA.
Yeah.
So in theory, there could be that sort of dynamic if Katie and I have kids. I don't know if my sister is going to, but seeing my brother-in-law with his kids, Katie's parents definitely take an active role in like, they'll stay at like Nona and Grandpa's for the weekend or whatever. Just
as they should.
Stuff like that comes up, and it's definitely got to feel at least a little nice where you have that support system. And there have been articles that I've seen where it's like, people of Jim's age are trying to like want to enjoy their retirement and just, I'm out, I'm traveling.
Which I do get. Like,
yes, me too.
But at the same time, like,
I don't like to travel, so.
But fair like, enough. Okay, so, and you know what? Like, that's the thing, though, is like everyone, like, you shouldn't be tied to what everyone says is the norm, right? Like, that's fine. Yeah. And it's like, so Jim, you don't like traveling, but at the same time, what if you're like, I also hate children. So it's like, okay, well, that's not going to be a good solution for someone to watch your kids. No, Jim's like, yeah, no, I don't want to, I'm just going to enjoy myself right here. And that's fine too. But it's like, how, I don't know, there seems to be some sort of bigger scheme of things, right? And not having the involvement of older generations with the youth is like, that can be good and bad. Because also, like, I remember having older teachers, like when I was in like grade school and stuff, and there were a couple older teachers in high school. And like Jim, like you pointed out, is that some people are just pieces of shit, and like they will push and push and push and push until you try and freak out. And if you're not capable, like you were, where you're like, hey, you can be like, hey man, why don't we just go outside for a cigarette? And then you close the door behind them and go like, get fucked, asshole. Right? If you're not smart enough to do that, kids will push you until you break. Like that is what they will do, right? And that's why, Atlas, just remember, never touch them. Just never, even when they get in your face, be like, hey, sorry. That's not how it works, you know.
At graduation at the end of this last school year, like a couple of people like came to hug me, and I was like, "See, I'm not touching. Cool, good rats." But like,
yeah. That's
I had being a bus driver with kids, like they like to pull the bell. You know, I think it's really funny. Oh, yeah. And what I started doing was this one kid. I caught the kid Arturo. He's doing this, and his name's Arturo. And I made it so he was the only one that was allowed to pull the bell. So if anybody wanted to get off the bus, they'd have to get Arturo to ring the bell for him. And then Arturo would have to pick, when he got off the bus, he'd have to pick somebody that was and anyhow, that was pretty, but that kind of made him not want to ring the bell anymore.
This is kind of beside the point, but I was on the bus the other day, and there was a guy standing at the front talking at the bus driver. Oof. And you could see the bus driver be like, just shut the fuck up, please shut the fuck up. I'm just trying to drive. And the guy was talking about real estate or something. And like me and the other people on the bus just kind of looked at each other and we're like, someone should tell him to stop. But also, we could probably get, you know what? Sorry, bus driver. Felt bad to watch. What do you do in that situation? How do you get the guy?
I just kind of just turn him off and just like, yeah. Yeah, because it's easier just to it's just easier to turn them off.
100%. Listen, it's like being in a very loud club and somebody's trying to tell you a story and you go, none of it's real. None of it's real. Don't give a shit.
The second you hear your third, that's crazy, conversation's done.
Yeah. The fact that people don't realize when someone's like, wow, 5 times, hey man, they don't hear anything, just move away. But also too, Atlas, you probably would have got stabbed if you're like, hey man, leave him alone. Like that's immediate.
Nope.
Because you have situations, or I've had situations too where people like, and then you get like automatic doing things. Like I've had other like where somebody's turned in front of me. Somebody was this actually. There's this gentleman that rides the bus, and he can remember everybody's birthday. And he's like, and he remembers numbers like crazy. But like he remembers my stepson's birthday. He remembers my grandmother's, like, you tell him anything, he'll remember, and he'll keep asking you about it.
How into train schedules is he?
And then he'll want to know like exactly where you're. And there's this other, and this is a completely different guy. He would find the transfers, because we have these transfers that pop up out of the machine, and they generate a number. It's like a 10-digit number.
Yeah.
And what this guy was doing is he's going through the trash can and getting all the transfers. This guy, he happened to be named Daniel, was his name, and we all got to figure. So then, but what he would do is he would be waiting at bus stops, and as soon as the bus would stop, he would run and get inside the bus, get in the trash can, and pull out all the transfers and start and get like excited about like putting all the numbers in sequence. And he actually did that, and then he started where he's running across the street. And he did this one time to a highway patrol. There happened to be a highway patrol driving down the street, and then he witnessed this guy run across the street and almost get hit by a couple of cars, get on the bus, grab a bunch of the transfers, and then go running off. And then they actually like chased him down and were holding him at gunpoint. and then the supervisor luckily came out there and said no. And then he came out and was holding the transfer to him and got him to calm down. Yeah. And then the highway patrolman said that he goes, I thought I had seen everything.
I mean, it's one of those things, right? Kyle says it's a good method. Dino does this to me.
What is he referring to? The like, wow, that's crazy.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah. Or even worse.
Not true though.
Is when you're interested in the conversation, but you can't think of anything to say besides the filler. That's crazy or whatever. So you try and come up with just some kind of question to what they're saying, or it's like, yeah, but why was the shirt that color? And they're like, that has nothing to do with the story I'm telling you, but I don't know. And you're like, I'm just trying to stay involved.
Yeah. Listen, that's the hard part about this all. Like in the end, no one has the right to tell you how to live your life, right? Like that's just the reality of the situation. And but the problem is you're going like that guy, he's running across traffic. You're like, hey, you're not only putting yourself in danger, but you're putting other people in danger, right? Like, and that's when you kind of stand going like, all right, how do we figure this out? And of course, a highway patrol guy is like, I'm going to fucking arrest the guy. You're like, that's not helping. It's not helping, right? But realistically, we're in a situation now. So I think it must have been like just before I started losing weight and everything. I was having pain in my side, and it turned out it's non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which I've now resolved, and everything's great. But like I was lying down, and I'm like, my side hurts so bad, like it's so painful that I'm like, I don't feel okay, and I don't feel like I'm able to move. I don't feel like I'm thinking straight or anything like that. And they're like, are you a danger to everybody else? I'm like, no, but I'm also at that time, I'm like, I'm also 500 pounds and 6'3". So am I a danger? No, but I'm also the Kool-Aid man, and I can just, right through a wall. So, pick and choose. So an ambulance brought me, they did a bunch of tests. It was fine. But as I'm getting into the ambulance and they're like, hey, can you like just get on the stretcher? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. No problem. I'm like, I know you can't carry me. It's no problem. So I did. But then a policeman came and he's like, hey, I'm here in case. They're like, no, it's fine. He's not. Everything's fine. And I'm like, hey, officer, what's up? What are you here for? Cause problems? And he was just like, fuck. And I'm like, that's fine. But it was like, just in case, because some people they need a mental health check, right? And you're like, just to be safe with everyone. And that's a whole new thing, right? Because people look, that guy doesn't know what he's doing is wrong, but for him, he's discovering a series of numbers that who knows what they're going to provide, what insight they're going to provide to his mentality. But to everyone else, you're going, this fucking guy's going to kill somebody, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it goes both ways, right? You have people who are able to indulge into those environments, but then at the same time, then you have people who I have seen young people bank on their parents or grandparents watching their children. And the parents are like, oh, I'm not doing that. Get fucked. And they're like, what? And then the kids are on their own. You're like, that's kind of a thing too. can go both ways. I don't know. But I don't know.
So to sum that all up,
yeah,
we everything sucks. No,
well, no, actually, the thing it's what's interesting is that anything can be entertaining too if you look at it.
True.
You know, and it's just kind of a shame that people don't look at the positivity of things, and you know, like this whole, you know, like not to get political, but this whole "Make America Great Again." I go, well, what's to say America's not great? You know, yeah. Anyhow, it just kind of makes me wonder about stuff like this. You know, it's like,
for sure.
You know, it's like looking at the glass being half full and half empty.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a marker on that, right? Like it's thing about it is like the life, like, look, we live longer. We are, for lack of you know, a comparison, like we live healthier, safer lives in general.
That's true. Very low chance of getting carried off by pillagers.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, well, especially when you're 500 pounds. That's
one works out pretty good. Tell you,
exploited by your feudal lords. Remember, people, pay your mercenaries. Watch Last Minute History.
Yeah.
Well, but think about it. Like, listen, the idea of land ownership is only a few hundred years old for the majority of people, right? Like, think about it. Is if you weren't a very connected, powerful businessman or some sort of royal lineage, you had no right to own anything.
Yeah,
that was it. You lived on borrowed time en masse, like your whole existence.
We barely had last names until a few hundred years ago, and most last names were just like what your job was, where you were from, or whose kid you were.
That's how I met John Dick Toucher.
Exactly. Yeah. John, son, Baker, right?
Yeah.
Jesus of Nazareth, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I like my people like to eat whoever my ancestor was, so that was nice.
Oh, fun.
I mean, nutrition is nutrition. As long as you don't get the prions, you're okay, right? That's just...
One of the first assignments I gave to my students this year, this was for the freshmen, was like, where does your name come from and what it means to you? And so a lot of kids were like doing research into like their family lineage and what their name means, and they're like, Mr. Novak, what does Novak mean? I'm like, it's just the Russian equivalent of Newman. Which now I need somebody to Photoshop me on Newman's body from Seinfeld.
Ask and you shall receive. That's no problem.
Like a Russian postal worker. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Neither rain nor sleet. It's the first one.
It's so horrible.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a very interesting like realization for a lot of them. One kid who's like, it's 99% Latino school, and one kid's like, my name comes from like Goths. Like, she was looking up her family tree and stuff, and she's like, my family dressed in black. I'm like, no. It's not like the kids from South Park behind the Denny's. It's like they were Germanic people, like late Vikings. And she goes, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
I mean,
I just love the like look on her, like the relief where she's like, oh, good, they're not talking about death for the 80,000th time. All right, that's good. And then the 9-year-old shows up. It's like, actually, I have some thoughts about that. Okay, I have a question for you guys. When was the first time in your life where you thought to yourself, I am truly an adult? By yourself, not people going, son, you're a man now. Not when you graduated high school or went to college. The first time past the age of 25 where you're like, I am an adult.
Jim, what are you thinking?
Oh, I really don't know. I think it was probably, I think when I was driving, when they sent me to New York City to drive a bus. Because I was like 26, I think. And then and then maybe that was, I guess I'm a grown up now. But that, and then also it was kind of weird. Like after my parents were dead for a while, I noticed Santa Claus stopped bringing me presents.
Jesus, keep it light, Jim. Oh my God.
I know. I just thought it was like really bad, but the Santa stopped bringing me presents. And then right after my parents died too. But no.
Jeez, yeah. Well, I mean, like that's the crux of the episode, right? Is like your parents passing on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hold on. I want you guys, before I answer this, I want you guys to think about this way. So it's like the fact that parents live longer means that they can lord their principles over their children for a longer period of time, which means because realistically, if your parents are gone, there's no one who's like, oh, our family wasn't raised that way. You can be like, well, I can do whatever the fuck I want, right? Because no one's going to give you. Because listen, for all intents and purposes, a real parent will be able to say, hey, I taught you better than that. Shut the fuck up. Don't do that shit, right? And you'll be like, I'm sorry, right? But when your parents are gone, then it's like now it's up to you as to what principles you want to maintain and what principles you're like, that's foolishness. I'm not doing that anymore. Right? Like those two things. Because I'll tell you this much, for me, the first time I felt like an adult was probably after my dad passed.
Okay.
That was your dad is the only man in existence who wants you to surpass them. Right? Sorry. Yeah. So Jim, what I was saying was when I really started to feel like an adult was when my dad passed. And that, like, I had a good relationship with my father, and did Santa die with Jim's parents, or was Jim? It was
people who are listening to this and don't know what Jim looks like. It's a pretty apt description.
Yeah,
I mean that's
I do play Santa Claus at several different places too during this.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a crazy, when your first parent dies, it's like it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, for me, like I bought a case of beer. I was 15. Like here in Canada, the legal drinking age is 19. I got a case of beer. I was 15 years old. I'm like, I look like a grown ass man since I hit puberty. Like I hit puberty and boom, there's gray hair. That's it.
I think everybody has those, like, I'm an adult now, but it's like, it's just what their perspective is giving them. But it's it's the shadows on the wall in the cave. You're not actually outside the cave yet, so to speak.
Well, that's, come on. How many times have you met a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old who's like, well, I'm a man now. You're like, let's relax. You're barely a child, but you're definitely an idiot. That's the only claim to fame you have. Like,
There's a Patton Oswalt bit where he's talking about, like, you should only get about 20 birthdays in your lifetime, and he's like, 19, you get a birthday because it's your last year as a teenager. It's kind of wistful. 41-year-old guys don't want to fuck you anymore, ladies. It's all downhill. Marry a guy with a yacht.
Jesus.
This was when he was young and before he had kids, so of course it's going to be a little like raunchy.
Yeah, sure. But I feel like that's one of those things where, like, because of the long life of everything, like everyone's kind of getting or missing the chance to live their own type of journey. Like, I don't know, like, because, okay, Jim, for yourself, did your parents have a big role to play in like what you were going to do for employment? Like, did they say, hey, you need to go learn this or XYZ? Did
no,
they have
not
any?
Really. I wanted to be like an actor and then a comedian.
Yeah.
And they didn't really like that too much, but I just told them I could just pretend like I'm doing another, I can just act like I'm a bus driver now and I'll make a living. And,
smart.
But but this is another thing about people getting older that, not necessarily with parents, but with senior workers now, like people are staying in their jobs for like ever.
Yeah.
And when you work for a company that has seniority based like job assignments.
Yep.
So people don't really get to move up, and it's creating a little bit of hostility because the work, like in my particular job, is like you have to work these split shifts for your first few years.
Yeah.
And where you're at work from 6 a.m. till 7 p.m. And these people that are the senior drivers, they're not retiring. and they're just staying in the cushy positions, the cushy runs, and so like you're having to do these like what you're supposed to only be doing for a few years, for 20 years, and that's I think a huge problem. I think we need to figure out some kind of mandatory retirement age. I think, or that's just what I think. But workers.
Well, that's the real crux of it is like the advantage of having time in an industry, whatever it is, like as a driver, as a tradesman, whatever it may be, you will learn something. And it is important for that knowledge to be passed on. But if you're trying to hold on to your job because as long as you're capable or needed, you'll be able to get paid, you're like, well, that's counterproductive too, because now you're holding on to something which rightfully should move on. Like you should be able, like the idea that you have to wait until 65 to retire, you're like, for what? Half the people I've literally, because I used to be a financial planner, Jim. I'm like, I saw clients who were planning, they're banking, like 65, I'm going to go travel the world. I'm going to do this. 63, boom, kick the bucket. You're like,
oh yeah.
What's the fucking point? What's the, like, that didn't work out. You're like, that's why it's like going to travel. Like I said this to Atlas and I've said it to the other guys that we do shows with. I'm like, hey, do you ever look back fondly and remember that time where you slaved away at work and nobody cared? No. You remember that time? You're like, no, I skipped work. I went out with my buddies and had an epic night. That's what you should do. Not be like, oh, remember all that overtime I worked and all my coworkers hated me? Yeah, nobody cares, right?
Yeah, I worked a lot of overtime because I managed to make a lot of money when I was a bus driver, but it's because I worked a lot of overtime. And it just it's not worth it. It's like such a waste of time now. If I could tell people that was probably the biggest waste of my life was working overtime.
Yeah. Most of the time I've worked overtime is not because like, oh, I need to like get this bread or like I need to look good for the boss. It's just like I want more money so that I don't have, so I can like go do other shit or like. Yeah, it's never been a social thing for me. Like so yesterday and the day before was Katie's best friend's wedding and rehearsal dinner, respectively. Mm-hmm. So at the rehearsal dinner, we were talking to another one of the bridesmaids. Katie was a bridesmaid. And when we were like getting to know each other, the first thing that I asked them was like, what do you like to do for fun? And a lot of them were just like, oh. Because what they're expecting is, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I don't care. Like, unless what you do is who you are as a person, and especially for people of my age and younger, it almost never is.
Yeah.
What you like to do for fun, and we're seeing a result of like the toxic work culture for millennials, which is like, I have to work until I die. I don't have any time for fun. I must live to work. And like, that's, or I must live to work, but it should be work to live.
And, it should be. And that's why we need, that's why we really need to have the housing needs to be more affordable for people.
Definitely.
People are spending half of their income on housing or
more. It's worse, Jim. We're talking about 55, 60% of your income going to housing. You're going, how are you can't realistically think that number makes sense on any level. There's zero possibility, right? And that's
I love when they say like, okay, make sure you save up money so you can save it for a rainy day. I'm like, what if I have 2 in a row? That's what happened to me, and now I have no savings. Whee!
Well, no, you take your savings and you put it on number 22 black.
Nice. Okay.
That's my philosophy, but sometimes
and then do it again.
Red comes up, but
and then get out.
Listen, like I like this. Like Kyle has just said, we used to have mandatory retirement, but the liberals took away. Blah blah blah. But like realistically, if there's an age
neoliberals
where you have to work, like or you can't work until your X age, you can't drink until your X age, you can't join the military until your X age, you can't have jury service until X age. Then there should be limitations, right? Because you can't be president unless you are over the age of 35? 35.
Yeah.
Then you shouldn't be allowed to be president over the age of 55.
I think
that's prime time. That's prime time, right? 35 to 55, right?
With life expectancies being as long, I'm willing to bump that up to 65 and have it just be like retirement age like normal. But I agree with you the rest of the way. Just
look, and you know what? And that is a fair point. Because listen, the drinking age, right? That should be adjusted too. Why? Because things have changed. And look, and I'll tell you this much: in Greece, there is a drinking age in Greece. I believe it's 16. But their perspective is, if you can afford it, feel free. Who cares? Yeah. Why? Oh, what are you going to do? Drink yourself into a stupor? Yeah, you'll throw up, and then you'll know never to do it again. Ta-da! Solution.
I mean, there's that, but also 6-day work week. So take with a grain of salt, maybe.
6-day work week. Yeah, the Europeans that 6-day work week.
No, Jim, I've been making fun of Dino for this ever since it happens, and he gets really mad about it.
Well, okay, but let me explain. So, Jim, what they did was they just mandated in Greece that there's going to be a 6-day work week. And I explained to Atlas that I'm like, listen, bro, it used to be 5 days and no one worked 5 days. It just didn't happen. So you can mandate whatever the fuck you want. Trust me, getting a Greek to work 8 hours a day, get fucked. It's not going to happen anyway. So you can mandate all you want. And that's
so 6 days a week, they'll get 20 hours of work out of them, you think?
Tops.
Maybe
tops. Right? I explained this to my wife I'm like, look, if you go to Hong Kong, Toronto, LA, New York, London, these are places you make money. You can make money. You could do business. Okay. When you come to Greece, you learn how to live, because you will not get 1 second more of work until I've maximized my enjoyment of life. It's that simple. And that's why, like, it was the perspective of like, no. I work so I can enjoy my life. I don't work to work. That's insane. And everyone just kind of looks at them. They're like, but you should work. Be like, no, I should live. I should enjoy my life. That's what you should do. Your only job is to be able to enjoy your life and try and not be a garbage person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Must be.
Yeah, it's it's sad with the.
Yeah, that's a good point. Must be serving your first term of president by the age of 60. That's fair. I think that's reasonable.
That's understandable.
Or the I don't want to get political again, but it's kind of crazy when you look at who's the more crazy old person.
Right? Like that. Hey, that's the hilarious part about everything, Jim, is you're going, okay, listen, let's be honest. They both shouldn't be employed. They go away, go do something else.
Yeah.
Young people, somebody else, anybody else.
Well, and especially like one of them likes to just go play golf for the rest of your life. Don't leave us alone.
100%.
Yeah. Well, that's like, once I found out I had these health issues and I couldn't drive a bus anymore. I was like, it took me a while. I was like sad, but then after a while I go, hey, it's kind of cool not working. It's kind of neat waking up. And then the whole thing is like, last thing I want to do is have a medical emergency while I'm driving and kill somebody, or myself,
God, Jim, you are such a reasonable person. Please tell other people to be reasonable as well, because good God.
Well, I try my best, but I'm one of these people. I tend to tell people what I think, and that doesn't sit well a lot of times.
I have that problem. Yeah.
Okay, so the past 3 weeks, my car has been in the shop because of whatever. It doesn't matter. I was in the shop, and because of that, I either had to take public transit or borrow Katie's car.
Right.
And the one good thing that I enjoyed about public transit was like, okay, aside from the fact that I had to get up a whole hour earlier to get to work, I didn't have to do anything. Like, you just get on there and like dissociate until your stop comes.
It's kind of a little sideshow too. You get to watch all the freaks in the sideshow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 100%.
Flop in the snow. Yeah. So I kind of enjoyed doing that, except for just how fucking far my school is. I think if I had, like, my goal is after 4 years to ask for a transfer closer to home.
Sure.
So it's not so much of a big deal. And then maybe I can just take public transit to work. I know Katie's best friend does to her job, because she works on the west side and lives up here with us. And it's like whatever bus it is. But it's just that. And then like, I also at my school, because I have epilepsy, last year the counselors were like, hey, can you like be a pillar for kids who have epilepsy and are freaking out because like this is around the time they're learning to drive and they probably won't be able to.
Yeah.
So I like help them with like, okay, why don't we figure out how do you get to and from places on public transit, and like helping them map out like and like so we're having more kids instead of having their parents drop them off, they're like just taking the train or the bus. Yeah. I dissociated past my stop the other day. That's always the worst. One time, like last week when I was on the train on the A line and I'm going down, and then we get to the stop, and then please stand clear. The doors are closing, and then the car starts going fucking backwards, and I was like, "What is happening? Why are we going back the way we came?" And then I get off the stop that I was just at, and the guy was like, "Yeah, there's a stalled train, so we had to like pull you guys back." I'm like, screw this, and took it over the rest of the way. But it was $15 instead of $60.
Yeah, so I like that. Force Jim to be president. I mean,
I like that idea. Except for I don't want to be president. But that's what you who doesn't want to be president.
Good.
To be president.
Factual.
George Washington energy. I like it.
This is another weird thing about like epileptic. That used to be like an everyday occurrence. We'd have somebody having a seizure on the bus.
Oh yeah.
And then I guess the drugs got better. But I mean, but it used to be like pretty common. You'd have at least one or two a day. People back in the 80s.
Yeah. Well, the meds are getting better. And part of the problem is they have to just kind of guess. They're like, let's try Keppra. Keppra didn't work. Okay, we're going to try this and this. And like, you know, the side effects fall where they may, the chips fall where they may. And like,
for sure.
On my meds, I haven't had had one in at least 8 months, I think. Like, it's been a while. So that's good.
Because that's kind of scary. But the thing is you would see some we know to get people, just leave the person alone, let the seizure run its course. Because people always want to pull their tongue out. That's the thing. Like just keep them in the seat and then keep people away from them.
You can't swallow your tongue. Not a thing.
That's but everybody thinks that for some reason.
Epileptics, if you have the condition, get one of these, because you never know when you're going to be alone, and people are like, oh my God, it's their first one, and then call the ambulance. It doesn't do anything. Having a bracelet where they go, oh, okay, all right, just make sure they don't, brain themselves on the seat or whatever.
Or put a cookie in their mouth and try and mash it. It'll help them wake up. No.
Or drop them off on the bus stop, one of the two.
Yeah, just kick them out of the car. Kick them out of the car while the car is still moving. They'll be fine. Epilepsy gives them superpowers. Anyway. That's it. Epilepsy does give people superpowers. So no problem.
I just realized I forgot to answer the first time I truly felt like a man, and I think it was when I moved in with Katie, which was only about a few years ago. Because before it was just like, oh, I'm a comic. I'm trying to make it as a comic, and I didn't really, my job was just like, get it out of the way so I can go do stand up or whatever. And with Katie, it felt like I was going a concrete direction that I could actually see where something was, and not just a nebulous cloud of where stand up. It was we're moving in together with the implicit idea that we'll probably get married someday. We might have kids someday. Like, it finally looked like something was going to happen.
As you should. Yeah, and that's a reasonable. See, look, that's the thing is, a lot of times too, for a lot of men, is until they have the responsibility of a significant other or family or something else, right? And that can be a job or anything that has responsibilities that other people rely on. You tend to start to appreciate that you have an importance to the universe, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's a big deal. Like, think about it this way. Like, Jim, you're a bus driver. Okay, that means all those people are technically in your care while you're driving. That's a responsibility that, you don't always think of, but you're like, it is important, especially somebody pulls out in front of you. Like, you kind of start to realize, hey, I have a role to play, right? Which is important.
Yeah, and we can perform marriages too when we're on the bus too.
Like the captain of a boat. I love it. That's totally reasonable. Totally reasonable. Yeah. All right. Well, so the answer is live your life with complete disregard for everyone else. You might be happier, but maybe not.
Go ahead.
Enjoy yourself. That's the key. Just like look at life as being a show for you.
100%.
We're almost,
and we're blessed to be, we're blessed to live in probably the nicest place in the world, at least here in Santa Barbara, but like, and in the United States in general.
True.
People don't realize how lucky we have it in the Western states here. Canada too.
Absolutely. Listen, and I've multiple times told people, I'm like, listen, you should travel for no other reason, just to realize and appreciate what we have here. Remember, like, this is not like, it's been hundreds of years before there were people marching through our streets. That's a big deal. And that's not necessarily what a lot of people can say. That's hard. Yeah. It's a hard life, right? But
that was what, 200 and something. When did the Canadians burn down the White House?
1812.
In 1812, I know it was the War of 1812, but was that like later in the war? I can't remember. Whatever.
But yeah, see what happens when we let too many Canadians in here.
100%.
White House, yeah.
Bunch of troublemakers. Just check out the Geneva Convention if you want to know what Canadians do, people. It's a great read.
So Jim, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. I enjoy comedy. That's the other thing too. And go to comedy shows. And especially Atlas's. Like go to Atlas's Facebook and then go to one of his comedy shows, and that will make you happy.
Thank you. Do you have like anywhere people can find you, follow you, or anything? Or
oh yeah, I should have put that in there. I have Facebook and Jim Eaton at 8:05, and then I also do comedy shows at the Red Piano on Thursday nights in Santa Barbara, and Friday nights at the Java Station in Santa Barbara.
Nice.
Santa Barbara Comedy something.com website. I don't know. Laughfestival.com.
We'll have it in the show notes for people.
Yeah.
To look up.
But I can't actually remember that stuff because then they would let me be a baby boomer anymore.
You can follow. You can follow us at Generation Dan on Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you get your podcasts. Yep. Make sure to leave a like, leave a review, leave a comment, all that stuff. Tell your friends about the show. You can find me at Atlas Novak in all the places social media is found. Also on Generation Dan's channel, Last Minute History with me and Cole Clayton, where we go over a historical topic like a fifth grader fumbling through a book report. On the 18th, we'll be covering Bonnie and Clyde. So did you know that they were in their 20s?
Wow.
I thought they were like early 40s, but they're like, adulting, and then bullets through the car. So, Dino, where can they find you?
Well, before I plug my own stuff, guys, I just want you to know that one of our friends, Kyle Petrila, he is on the Face of Horror. He's competing. He's currently in first place, if you haven't noticed. So he is doing a great job. So please go check him out. If you go to the Face of Horror and check out Kyle Petrila, or you'll have a link in his social media. So check that out as well. But for me, I am a Dino the Genetic Marvel, and you can find me probably somewhere hiding in a dark alley. But aside from that, I am going to be doing comedy today in Ajax at Harwood Blue. So come check it out at 9 p.m. And check out my social media everywhere. If you can't Google me, we're not going to be friends. Just be reasonable. Okay?
Also, your show with said Kyle Petrila.
I have my show tomorrow with Kyle is Life of Giants, which I'm 90% sure we're doing. Then also too on Tuesdays, one of the shows that we also do has been blowing up with me and Cole Clayton, which you may have known. The same Cole Clayton from Last Minute History. Yeah. We do Hammered and Cheese, and we cook, and he gets drunk, and then we make fun of people. It is an enjoyable time. Also too, it's Big Jim E, one of the founding members of the NWA. I mean,
yes,
that's totally reasonable. Totally reasonable.
I actually took them on a bus trip from Phoenix to El Paso one time, by the way.
Wow.
Their bus had some issues with their bus. Yeah.
And that's the reason that there's not a song called Fuck the Bus Drivers.
Yeah.
100%. That's it. Thank you to Jim. Anyways, everyone, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.